sure how many is watching, but I hope a lot of people joined in with us. And I've got some things I'd like to do first, and later on we'll turn it over to our town manager. First, I'd like to thank all the citizens and businesses for all the ways that they have pulled together in this time of need for our town, and always keeping us informed. Your cooperation and your input is critical for us as a council being able to serve you well. I appreciate how the majority has focused on the needs of the community, and even though it was tough, we didn't like it, we followed the executive orders that we knew were in place for our best interest. I would also like to thank the council and our town staff, including our first responders such as the Surf City PD, for all the hard work that they have done during this difficult time. Communication hasn't been easy, demands have been tough, and there is never enough time. But they rise to the occasion every time, and I am proud of their work. I am thankful for such a strong team to work with. We're coming off of what has been a busy weekend, as most of you know, and I apologize for it, with some confusing and challenging circumstances that have happened to many citizens. I know their emotions were rising, though the various messages I received, each from specific and different details and concerns, the voice of our people spoke loud and clear. We all have our own fears, but we all are in the same storm together. Though we each have very different opinions of what the solution should look like, if we look closely enough, our similarities are bigger than what you think. We love this town. We love our neighbors. We want our town to prosper. We want a safe and fun place to live and raise our families. We want to feel secure and peace in our homes and in our neighborhoods and in our communities. Let those similarities speak louder than the fears and emotions that try to drive us apart. No one single answer will satisfy you and all of your neighbors equally. We have to meet in the middle with patience and understanding. There is no other way. We must think of our community family and provide empathy and sympathy as we sacrifice our wants and move towards needs. If we look closely, we can see our neighbors are made of medical professionals on the front lines, teachers struggling to provide our next generation for home, and elderly vulnerable people who need us to cover ourselves for their benefit, and for first responders who encounter way less than 6 foot distance all day long while serving and protecting us. Essentials workers who are tired and risking their health for minimum wage. Small business owners who are struggling to pay their bills, and the list goes on and on. Let our similarities and empathy pull us together and drive our fighting spirit to endure the rest of this storm. Patience is a must because the road is still long. Now is not the time to give up and quit too early. We need to proceed with caution. Whatever we do together. We rise and fall together. We always have and always will. This virus has threatened our sense of safety, security, and community here in Surf City. It was infringed upon our family-friendly, neighborly small town and has had a huge emotional impact on all of us. So more than others, in less than 50 days, we have served our neighbors by staying away from them. Instead of greeting them with hugs, as we normally do here in our small town, has worn us down, and we're tired. We're tired of staying home. We're tired of being lonely. We are just plain tired, and our patience are nearly gone. Let's not allow social distancing to become an emotional distance during this already difficult time. I believe in fighting spirit of Surf City. We are a family, so today I'm asking you to remember your neighbors as we move ahead with difficult decisions. I am asking you not to quit. I fully believe our success in keeping our numbers down is thanks to all of you who have followed the orders and have been selfishly staying home. I do not want our hard work and efforts to go to waste. We must stay the course as we incrementally move back to normal. We need to remember the love of our small business owners. We need to remember to love our visitors and our day trippers, our second homeowners, and our tourists. We need to remember and love all those on the front lines, our medical staff, our first responders who have taken the brunt and received the worst of the virus. We need to remember to love of our essential personnel who have never stopped working through the conditions, of the virus and are risking their lives to serve you. We need to remember and love our elderly and our vulnerable. We just need to remember and love those who have not received a paycheck the entire time that we have been out of work. We need to remember and love those who are hungry and need food for their homes. So many of us have real needs during this time. Some needs are the same, some needs are different, but all have needs. I am asking you to show compassion and give simple kindness as we sacrifice to meet the middle. I know that all of our differences and hardships are not equal. We may not be in the same exact spot, but we are all in the same storm and all equally vulnerable as human beings. This isn't about politics, it's about people. This isn't about taking away freedoms or privileges. It's about protecting all Americans who work together as communities of all sizes to best follow the governor's guidance and the president's guidance. As I stated in our workshop a couple of weeks ago, we have made some tough decisions in order to protect our citizens. It is now time to start implementing a plan to reopen. Just as we entered this pandemic with a strategy, we must exit with one. My goal is to ensure the health and safety of our community is to protect first and foremost as we move toward reopening. There are a few steps I would like to take into town that coordinate the governor's phases that will be presented here today. We would like to open parking with porta-johns, tennis courts, and a dog park, followed shortly by the opening of our short-term rentals as quickly and as safely as we can do so per the governor's guidance. Along these changes, I am proposing that we make face coverings mandatory for all closed-in spaces where it is nearly impossible not to be within 6 foot of others. As we move toward opening and increasing our presence in the community back to normalcy, it will become more difficult to protect ourselves and others, but by using face coverings and washing our hands for the next several weeks. We are trying to avoid a COVID bounce back by relaxing too soon because we create normalcy. But we will get there. We must remain vigilant and washing our hands, maintaining the appropriate number in groups, wearing face covering in closed places, staying 6 foot apart from anyone you are around that is outside of the ones that you are quarantined with. As long as we continue to work together in following these critical steps of protection, I feel we will be able to get together through the governor's phase plan to reopen and have a great summer season. Maybe even better than before, with everyone wanting to get out of their houses. We're all ready to enjoy ourselves and want better place to go and to do better things to go and places to do in Surf City. I am looking forward to much positively as we together climb out of this dark time. Although individual circumstances may look different, we have all been in the same storm together and must work together to recover. We can make it through the hurricanes, the pandemics, and whatever else might come our way if we work together. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Kyle, our town manager. He'll be presenting some slides and giving specifics on how to look as we move forward with changes and updates for this week. And then after that, we will have each one of our councilmen to put their input into it. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Kyle at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the comments. I'm going to try to share my screen here with a quick PowerPoint just to provide some visuals for council and the public who are participating with us. So just bear with me a little bit. All right. Let me see if I can change it to get to the other. Hey, Jason, do you recall how to pull the full slideshow? Okay, I apologize. Give me 1 second. All right, how's that? All right, just getting back into the discussion of potential options moving forward. Wanted to put together just some quick visuals to lead that discussion. So this is in the form of a general update. So as we know, well, now it doesn't want to change. Okay, so Tuesday, March 17th, Surf City enacted a state of emergency to help provide the tools necessary to deal with the COVID-19 virus. As we all know, this included closures of all of our public beach accesses, public parking, our public parks, and short-term rentals that have been suspended. The current status of that is that our public parking does remain closed for beach accesses as well as other locations within town. Our beach accesses are open in a somewhat revised capacity, Roland Avenue having a couple of restrictions there, and then the short-term rentals being suspended still through May 15th. So what we were looking at with the short-term rentals being through the 15th is that additional consideration and decisions to be made based on an attempt for a coordinated effort with our partners at North Topsail Beach and Topsail Beach, as well as additional word from the governor in regards to his phased reopening approach and plan for the state. As we know, we do anticipate moving into phase 1, but that specific announcement has yet to be made, and we do anticipate hearing from him in the next coming days. Consideration will be for public parking to reopen Friday, May 8th at 7 o'clock, this is a.m., as well as public restrooms to remain closed and placing portable restrooms in locations that we have public restrooms available. This will provide protections and safety measures against town staff who are tasked to typically clean those public restrooms, and we want to provide those protections. So from an operations standpoint, we will be poised to be able to provide those for our citizens and visitors coming to the beach. As well as areas like the boat ramp, et cetera. In addition to that, we felt that moving into phase 1, that it would be okay to open up the tennis courts here at the community center, as well as opening up the dog park at the community center to provide additional opportunities for our citizens to get out and enjoy the nice weather that we've seen. We do want to stress that the number of individuals that might be congregating in these locations still need to be in compliance with any executive orders that are in place by the state and by the governor. And then lastly is looking at the face covering method, as we do see visitors coming to our area This is a potential opportunity to provide additional protections for not only those visitors, but certainly for our citizens, and looking at requiring those for any indoor public spaces, where social distancing just cannot be achieved. So we'd like to look at that. Also, I did caveat that face coverings should include cloth type masks or coverings. We don't want folks to go try and source N95 or surgical masks, because we still want to be cognizant of our first responders and healthcare workers. And if there is a supply out there, we'd like to see that go to them. But of course, if you have these types of masks, they certainly would be acceptable.
Hey, Kyle, you got a minute?
Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but while you're on that topic, when you say face masks are required or to be required in indoor public establishments, what are examples of public establishments?
So just areas in which the public would be invited.
I think the attorney does have some information on that with him. So if we'll let him present that before we go to council.
These are okay, because I'm just concerned about private businesses being able to determine that for themselves and citizens understanding the risks involved. I'm going to wait to make a further comment on that once
Sure.
the attorney's done with his description then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then lastly, in my presentation, was that the difficult decision did have to be made that we would cancel our July 3rd Independence Day celebration and to resume that back July 3rd of 2021, which is a Saturday and should be a pretty big celebration for town. But unfortunately, that's something that we needed to do. We felt it was the right thing to do. So in summary, just real quick, short-term rentals, again, waiting on some guidance from the governor in regards to the first phase of moving forward. Proposal open public parking Friday, May 8th at 7 o'clock. Opening up the tennis courts and dog parks at that same time. Public restrooms, facilities, and playgrounds will remain closed. However, we will provide for public restroom opportunities through portable restrooms, the face covering portion of it, and then the Independence Day celebration. And that concludes the message in regards to options moving forward. If we do hear from the attorney on the face covering, I'll yield that to him. And I'll keep the summary slide up just so folks who are participating will have an opportunity to review that and look at that.
All right, one more thing before you leave this slide, Kyle. This is Dwight, Torres.
Yes, sir.
The public restroom versus the porta johns. What went into that decision making? Because I don't see the difference between possibly being infected by using a porta john, which is not going to be cleaned at all, other than when they initially deliver it, and maybe whatever frequency they come by and replenish those. But because my concern is we have facilities that already exist, restrooms, permanent structure. I understand there's a concern about keeping them clean with our staff and keeping our staff, I guess, protected themselves. But if the porta johns aren't really being disinfected, nor the permanent structures, what was the decision behind that? Economically, what's the cost of the porta johns to the town, especially at a time when we're already economically sensitive, if you will? Just trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for those questions. They're all very, very valid questions. So with our current relationship with our vendor to supply porta johns, these are things that are typically already in place, and we have not had them out. That typically starts in April when we provide porta john restrooms at various accesses that do not have public restrooms. The decision was made or recommendation, I should say, based on safety of our employees. And then working with that vendor, they will come every Friday and Monday to clean and disinfect those facilities. So again, the expense is already budgeted in regards to providing this as an option. We want to still try to provide as much protection to our employees. And then again, working with that vendor, having a relationship, they will come Friday and Monday every week to clean and disinfect.
Okay, that helps understand. Are there going to be porta johns at the locations where there's permanent restrooms?
Yes, there will. Yeah. So we've already got a list worked up of where these will be located. So again, even beyond where our permanent facilities are located, additional porta john facilities will be scattered at other public beach accesses that we typically provide, as well as over at the boat ramp.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. At this point, I'll yield any conversation back to the mayor and council.
Yes, I'd like to maybe have Brian to go ahead and present what he has on the face covering so that the council would have an idea of what we're talking about. And then they can incorporate that in their discussion. Brian. Are you there, Brian?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone. What I did is I looked at the Durham face covering restriction, and I have that in front of me. And in hindsight, I probably should have emailed that to Kyle and Jason so they could have incorporated it into the PowerPoint, but I will read it verbatim if you'd like. And this is to start the conversation. I think it's a decently written, as Durham did it. I modified it to take out the public transit part, but here it goes. Wearing of face coverings. Members of the general public are required to wear a clean face covering anytime they are or will be in contact with other people who are not household members in public or private spaces where it is not possible to maintain social distance. These spaces include grocery stores, pharmacies, and business locations. While wearing the face covering, it is essential to still maintain social distance insofar as possible, since social distancing is the best defense against the spread of the virus. New paragraph. For purposes of this paragraph, or excuse me, for purposes of this section, a quote, face covering, unquote, is defined as material that covers the nose and mouth. It can be secured to the head with ties or straps or simply wrapped around the lower face. It can be made of a variety of materials such as cotton, silk, or linen. A cloth face covering may be factory made or sewn by hand or can be improvised from household items such as scarves, t-shirts, sweatshirts, or towels. Acceptable reusable face covering options for the general public include bandanas, neck gaiters, homemade face coverings, scarves, or tightly woven fabrics such as cotton t-shirts and cotton types of towels. It is not required to wear face coverings during individual exercise outdoors or while walking or exercising with other people from the same household, as long as social distance from others is maintained. Now that is almost verbatim, Mayor and Council, from the Durham order. I think it is workable in that it gives the public numerous options. As Kyle indicated, we certainly want the more medical manufactured masks to go to the first responders, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, I just pulled this straight from Durham and edited out the public transit part. So
this is Dwight Torres again. What were the first two sentences, please?
Sure. And to answer your question that you asked earlier, Durham's order, which is what I just read to you, would include private businesses, but I'll read those first two sentences again.
Thanks.
Wearing of face coverings, that's the title of the section. Members of the general public are required to wear a clean face covering anytime they are or will be in contact with other people who are not household members in public or private spaces where it is not possible to maintain social distance. That's the first sentence. And we can probably make that 2 sentences so it's easier to digest. But essentially, if you're not with your household members and you're out in public and you cannot maintain social distance, whether it's a public or private space, which I believe would include a private business, then you're required to wear a face covering. Here's the second sentence of that paragraph. These spaces include grocery stores, pharmacies, and business locations. Those were the first 2 sentences, Mr. Torres.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I don't know if we're going to have further discussion on the topic, or is this the time to do that?
We can go ahead and discuss it now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, has there been initially the experts said don't wear face masks, and then they said wear face masks. And I don't know that it's a mandatory thing across the country. I can understand Durham doing it due to their high rates and all of that, and it being a metropolitan area. I just don't see how an individual resident can't make the decision for themselves as to whether they think, you know, they're at risk. You know, someone that's of age or is compromised in their own health already, maybe that makes sense. And if a business, you know, wants to do it, and it's the impact on their business, whether they, you know, restrict these people or not, I can respect that, the individual business making that decision for themselves. My concern is, you know, just restricting people more and more as we start to open up. It's a fine line. And moreover, I'm concerned that not everyone has the ability to have one of these masks. I guess they've given a lot of leeway towards what type of homemade and the net gaiters and all of that. I don't know. I would err on the side of, and I may be alone on this, but on the freedom of the individual to make that decision for themselves. Over.
Okay. Do we have someone else want to speak on that topic?
Doug, this is Don. At Walmart, I've been in Walmart, I've been in the Lowe's, I've been into a lot of the businesses around here. They're already wearing masks. I don't understand why. I'm in disagreement with Dwight. I think we should wear them, and you can make one or you can use one. These here will work, and I just think we ought to do that. I'm in support of wearing the face mask.
Yeah, this is Doug. I guess I came up with the idea of the face mask. And the idea of the face mask is not to protect other people coming in from our residents. It's more or less to protect our residents from other people that are coming in. Because if you look at the way it works, the person that is wearing the mask is only about 20, maybe 20% protected. But if the guy next to you is wearing the mask, it protects you about 95% from him. So what it's doing is protecting our people from all the other people that are coming in. Everybody hollers that they're going to be bringing the virus in here. So if they've got face coverings, then they will be 95% less likely to infect our local people with a face covering on. So that's the reason I'm looking at the face covering. It's not to punish our people, but it's to protect our people from the viruses that might be coming in. I mean, that's the way it is. And I think, you know, like I say, if as far as you wearing the face mask, it's not protecting you that much. But if I've got the face mask on and I've got the disease, then it's going to protect you from me. So that's
Not,
the way the face mask works.
I get it, and I appreciate your logic behind it. I go into public places everywhere I go, and I wear my mask.
Yeah.
My wife looks at me like I'm crazy, but you know, I'm trying to set that example. But I'm making a decision to do that myself, for myself, to protect others. My concern is the last work session we had, our town attorney, I think, brought up a couple of points in regards to, you know, how many restrictions do we make and how do we enforce them, and are they enforceable? We've been having difficult time enforcing some restrictions already, to parking, for example, this weekend, which is why I'm glad we're moving forward with opening up parking to not put people in a compromising position to illegally park, because they're going to come and they're going to park anyway, right? So now we're talking about, once we lift the long-term or short-term rental moratorium, we're talking about policing thousands of people. Who's going to be the enforcer of that? And what are we going to do if they don't? Are we going to arrest them? Are we going to give them a fine?
Well, I mean, we can fine them. That's true. But I think you'll find out. Okay, you don't go in Costco now without a face covering on. If you don't want to put a face covering on, you just don't go to Costco and go shopping. Same way, a lot of businesses, in other words, it's up to you. You know, if you don't want to wear the face covering, then you just don't go in that shop. You know, and I think you're going to find out that a lot of people that's coming in here are going to be already used to wearing face coverings. I think it's going to become more prevalent as we go through, because, you know, most of them feel like that this is going to be coming back again in the fall. So if we're already into these, like I say, we're not going to have a normal anything for a while, I don't believe, because we're going to have this virus around for a while. And so I think, you know, a lot of this stuff is going to become a normalcy for us here. You know, it's already that way in a lot of countries. So, you know, I mean, it's just things. But I'd like to hear from some of the rest of them too.
Thank you.
Teresa or Buddy or somebody, Jeremy, whoever. I know somebody else bound to have a comment on it.
Doug, what is the length of time that you want to do this roughly?
Well, I mean, we could do it like for, well, we can do it, you know, a month or two at a time. Yeah, I mean, it's, I just feel like it's going to be for a little while. I think as people get used to it, it's going to.
Well, I think, Doug, one of the things I think in our conversations we've had is what we're doing is you're being pressured to open things up.
That's right.
So we know that in about 2.5 weeks, we're going to have a major influx of people here for this week, Memorial Day weekend. And so we could have 25,000 people come into this city.
Right.
30,000 people easy. And most of these people are going to come from the north. Although, of course, personally, I'm not in favor of face masks, but if it protects my family and protects our community, the people that that live here, I think it's not a bad thing, especially if those people are going to be in our grocery stores. They're going to be in our shops. They're going to be around. And I just think that any steps and measures we can just take initially to soften that, I think is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you know, I guess a business, if they don't want you don't want it in their shop, then they can just not have it in their shop. And people that don't want to walk around people without face mask on. Just
Look, Mr. Mayor, look, everybody wins here when we do the right. We all kind of work together here.
Yeah.
Okay? Everybody wins, right?
no.
And that's the plan here. Is we
And
can,
I think evidently, you know, I'm sure that some of them, there are going to be some people that are against it. But I'm not trying to do it for restricting. I'm trying to do it for protection is what I'm talking about. But I mean, if we don't need to do it, then we won't do it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
why don't we decide to do this and get the realtors, because the short-term rentals will be over with, will be done. They'll be open back up again the 15th. Why don't we do this till as voluntary and let them notify or tell anybody on short-term rentals or regular rentals they got to have face masks.
Right. Well, they can just let them know that.
It's a voluntary thing that we don't have to burden our police department with enforcing, and just do it till the week after Memorial Day. And after that, it'll be on a voluntary basis, and they won't feel restricted, because a lot of these people that are going to come here are going to be from out of state. And a lot of these places that they're going to be coming from are already mandatory face masks. So it's not going to be something that's new to them. And I would like to see us do that until after at least Memorial Day.
Hey, Don, I'm sorry. Don, did I hear you say that you want it to be voluntary?
Well,
That's no good. Voluntary.
That's the
All right.
mandatory. We can do it mandatory and tell the realtors it's mandatory if they got people that's coming in and renting, that they have to wear it. If they go to the drugstore, Lowe's, CVS, any business, they got to have a face mask on.
Okay, I hear you, but again, if we're going to make it mandatory, who's enforcing it?
Well, the police can enforce it, and who's enforcing
Code
it?
enforcement and police
Costco
department.
is enforcing it.
Okay, so point number
Well,
two. Point number two, and I'll be done on the topic because I'm against it. But Jeremy brought up a point that most of the people come up from the north. In fact, I thought in our realtor meeting we had, Doug, that they did the research, and the data points the opposite, that only 2.5 to 5% are coming from those high-risk states.
They're making that up. Yeah. But anyway,
What's that?
I mean, all I can say is people are telling me they're driving around, they're seeing all these New York tags, New Hampshire tags, New Jersey tags, Pennsylvania tags. I just can't believe only 5% of the people come from the north that come here. I'm not disputing anybody's word, but I just can't. And I mean, I don't care. I can just stay away from all these places. Like I can do just like I'm doing now. I can order my groceries and have them delivered. And I'm not doing this to protect the people coming from the north. I'm doing this to protect the people that live here from the people that are coming from the high-risk areas and coming in here. And I mean, New York is not the only high-risk area. There's a lot of other high-risk areas that's going to have people coming in.
And I'll weigh in on this, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I think that with the opening up that we've got and what's going to be happening, there's going to be a lot more testing going on. So our numbers are going to certainly increase as far as the cases go because of the testing that's being done. Before, you could not get tested unless you were almost dead. I mean, unless you were seriously ill. So now they're opening the testing up, which is going to increase our caseload. I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a fact. And I think that we were elected to look at that, at our community, and try to figure out how to keep our community safe and the best, and what we need to do to it. Now, there's arguments on both sides whether to make it mandatory or whether to make it voluntary. I would think that any business that is opening back up that did not make it mandatory for someone to come in their business to have a mask on would lose business or lose some customers, I would think. And of course, you can say the exact opposite, because someone can say, well, we don't care. But I think in looking at it, whether in making it mandatory, we can strongly suggest that they wear masks. The Durham thing that our lawyer read said that unless you were in the family pod or family members, you go outside of that, you must have a mask on. I think that's reasonable. And of course, walking in open spaces and all that, you don't have to have that on. Now, I defended this country just like you did, Mr. Torres, for rights for our people and stuff. And it's a fine line trying to balance that. I know that as well as you do. But in looking at it, I think we have to look at it from the standpoint of what is best to make our community safe with all these coming in. And it's not just those that's coming in from up north. We have hot spots right here in our own state, Charlotte, Durham. We have, in Raleigh, we have them that are coming down here now. It's going to get even worse once we open it up. We've seen that most of our folks this day and time don't remember back when we had the old smallpox and flus and things that came in and the sacrifices that had to be made. We were used to, when we got tired and wanted to do something, to pop in the vehicle and shoot down somewhere and come back, go to Aunt Jane's or Uncle Bob's or whatever the case may be. That's been restricted. Our normalcy has been changed. I don't know what the new normalcy will be. But with that being said, I do think we need to look at saying and strongly encouraging all citizens wear those masks when they get out in public, inside buildings. I believe that. But if I had a business with what's going on, as uncertain as it is, as deadly as it is, if someone would come in my business, I would ask them to be wearing a mask. If not, I would turn them away. And I know that would affect my bottom line, but still at the same time, which is more important, I can't spend anything if I'm not here to spend it. So I'm in favor of encouraging wearing the mask and bringing those opening other stuff back.
This is Dwight. So hold on. I appreciate that. So how about this? You got 2 weeks starting May 8th that we're in phase 1, which is still stay at home. And it's similar to what we've been in all this time with exception of a few things like going out to commercial spaces and all of that. How about do it for 2 weeks, see how it goes enforcement wise, because I'm interested, really interested. And then on phase 2, which is going to allow you to go into restaurants with some spacing and all of that, because how do you eat with a face mask on? Do it for 2 weeks.
This is Don. In a lot of the restaurants now in South Carolina, they've opened, but they're only allowing them to eat in the restaurants outside, in the open, at the tables on the outside of the businesses. We don't have a whole lot of those type businesses here. And no, you can't eat with a mask on, but at least when you go in, you got that mask. And once you sit down, the people that you are directly across the table from and everything is usually your family members. I'm not worried about the people from up north. It's like the mayor said, we've got hot spots in North Carolina, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, and we were elected to protect, do what we can to protect our citizens, and that's what I'm interested in. And whether we make it voluntary or we make it mandatory, and the employees at these establishments I've been going in are wearing masks. The company requires them to wear the mask. So I think it ought to be done until after Memorial Day.
Doug, may I say something?
Yes.
Yes.
I am thankful when I have been to several facilities that before I walk in, they have took my temperature. They have required me to wear a mask, especially in pharmacies to where I know other people may be sick. I think it's awesome that they are testing and requiring you to wear some type of face covering and making sure that you don't have a fever before you come in and interact with other people. As far as like the big box stores, as your grocery stores, Lowe's, if we could get those big box stores on board to agree, hey, before you come in, please wear a mask. Or instead of bringing, 4 or 5 people out of your entire family, why not just have one of you come in the store? Try to eliminate some of the congregation of, 4 or 5 people coming from one family, especially when we do open up the vacation rentals. So, talking to the big box stores, getting them to work with us on, please have a mask before you come in our store. I think that would be something that we could reach out to them and get them to agree with us on. Thank you.
Okay. We have talked already about face coverings with Harris Teeter, Publix, IGA, and Food Line. They're fine with it. And I know many of the small businesses, if they can get open, in fact, a couple of businesses has already told me when they open, they're going to require face masks and they're going to require minimum number of people in the store, which is going to be the only way they're going to be able to open, because I think that's going to be in the governor's thing. But, most of our businesses are ready to cooperate with that. And most of them understand that there's going to be a lot more exposure when we do open up. So, if we take some small steps to help prevent some of it, every time somebody sneezes and they've got a mask on, there was a little story that was told, but I'm not going to tell it because it's funny, but we can't tell it online, about how the face mask works. But basically, in other words, if I've got a face mask on and you sneeze, it protects me about 18-20%, or a face covering. But if you've got the face covering on and you sneeze, then that protects me about 90%. So that's the reason I'm saying the ones that's coming in that we fear have the viruses, then we will be protecting our citizens from them if they're required to wear the face mask. The only way I can look at it.
Mr. Mayor, this is Don. Can I make a motion that we make this into a motion and get a second on it?
Well, it won't be a motion. It'll just be I believe, Brian, what do we do here?
Get a consensus.
All right, I'm for it.
If there's a consensus, Mayor, under the emergency management powers, you can modify the declaration of state of emergency and add or take away or modify existing restrictions. So you don't need a vote. So if you're comfortable that there's a consensus of council, then you could do that yourself. Likewise, the board could vote if they wanted to do something perhaps you didn't want to do. So
yeah. Well, let's just get a consensus.
I'm
Dwight,
for it. This
you're
is Don. I'm for it.
Don for it. Teresa,
Yes, sir. I'm for it.
Buddy,
You're on mute, buddy.
You get it?
Now I did.
Buddy, you there?
Yeah, I'm for it.
Okay, Jeremy.
I support your decision.
Okay, let's see, Dwight.
I'm against it.
Okay, you're getting all right. Well, it looks like the majority is for it, so really, and I'm for it.
Yeah.
So let's
Hey,
go.
Doug, Neil, just to be clear, I'm concerned about residents' transmission rates and all of that too.
Oh, I know you are.
Because I'm just saying that the people go in the store and they're going to have touching points. They're touching the door handle. They're touching the items on display. There's many ways to contract this disease. So where do we end restrictions?
Well, just some restrictions are better than none.
Yeah, that's good. I'm fine with it though. Go ahead. I look forward to seeing the enforcement.
Okay. All righty. Okay. All right. Well, we still got a lot of other stuff on there. Just start off with, why don't you go through the list, Dwight, since you're up front on the camera. Start off with the top of it and what you think of it.
The list of
That Kyle presented, in other words.
I'm good with everything that was presented. My questions were already asked regarding the restrooms, and we hit the face mask. But I'm in agreement of going forward with the parks, minus the kids' play areas because of the same thing, that the likelihood of that not being able to be disinfected in a way where it can be used safely. And I'm for the opening of the parking spaces. So I think that'll alleviate some of the problems we had this past weekend, and it'll help spread everyone out. So I'd say that I'm content with everything. The only thing that's left on the table that I don't, and are we thinking then that we're going to allow the short-term moratorium to stay in place until May 15th, or are we going to revisit that on the 8th of May?
We'll revisit that. We'll revisit that Friday morning.
Okay, because I think at some point, and the 15th right now probably, I guess, be the best day, because if we say on Friday morning, let's open it up tomorrow, it's going to be hard for people to be making that short-term decision that I'm coming tomorrow.
But I mean, it's going to be that way everywhere, because we're still, we hadn't heard from the governor yet, and Topsail Beach and North Topsail still have not confirmed theirs yet.
Yeah. So my position on that is that if we can, if things go the way we think they're going to go on Friday with the governor, is to go ahead and lift the moratorium on the 8th as soon as possible. If some people are able to get something in on that short notice, God bless them. They need all the relief they can get at this point. We put that moratorium on ourselves when we didn't know what we knew, and now we have more information. I would look forward to trying to provide them some relief, and the economic livelihood of our tourism is just important as the livelihood of our people. And we've done a good job, I think, up until this point. So I would like to see that lifted as soon as possible. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be Friday morning. All right.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I don't see it on the agenda, but I would like, if we could have a motion to suspend the rules and modify the agenda to add a closed session, if that's possible. Jason, I don't know if that's possible in this format or not. There's a couple items I think I would prefer to address to the entire council, but they're legal in nature. And so if we can't do that, Jason, or the council's it's got to be unanimous, does not unanimously want to do that, then I can call each council member individually after the meeting.
Okay. Are you talking about today?
Yes, sir. If that, Jason, I don't know if that's possible or not. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is Don. Do you need a motion at this time to allow a closed session at the end of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
I
Okay.
would make a
I'm not
motion
the mayor.
to
Okay, but go ahead.
allow a closed session at the end of the meeting.
I have a motion.
Approve the agenda, please.
Teresa,
At the end of the agenda.
okay. Did we get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. You'll understand why, and you and the council will once we go into closed session. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All righty. Then let's see. What have we got? Okay, wait a minute. Let's see. Teresa, you got some stuff to add?
I agree with the way that it was presented by Kyle. I think lifting some of the restrictions will definitely help the situation that that we saw from this past weekend with the parking, and also hopefully allowing the short-term rentals to open back up within the next week will be very grateful to a lot of business owners in our area. And I personally think that the business owners will be grateful that they can open back up and will not mind the face coverings.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Jeremy?
Yes, I just I have to say that one of the things that I want to, from our business standpoint, everybody comes in here to smoke more, and so it just seems like a majority of those people come in here, and I think the norm for people right now is trying to protect themselves and trying to protect other people. And I think that the stores buy in and help assist with this. There's not going to be an awful lot of policing for this. So I think that at the end of the day, anything we can do to protect our citizens. We don't have any cases here, active cases here. We don't have people that are sick from this. And I think you're doing a good job on this aspect. So I want to continue to do any little measures and steps that we can to continuously protect our city, our citizens, our children, and our family. And it's short term. None of this is permanent. This is all short term.
Yeah.
And I think, what the great thing about this is after Memorial Day, if you choose to say, hey, this is work, let's move beyond this, you can do that.
That's right.
So I think that, so that's what that's what I want to say. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I like that one.
That's the way we are, right? Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Buddy?
You're muted, buddy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of the phased-in approach, Mayor. And like Jeremy said, anything we can do, we need to do to protect our citizens. But also we need to open up as much as we can and let our businesses get back to some kind of normalcy, whatever that might be, and try to help their bottom end. I'm in favor of all the presentations that's been made as far as the phase-in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Don, have I hit you?
This is Councilman Helms. I'm in favor of the mask. I'm in favor of opening up all the parks, all the parking. I'm like Dwight. I don't think we need to open up the playground at this time, but if we could open up that area of the park for parking, that would relieve some of the stress on the rest of the town and open up all the parking at the crossovers. I'm in favor of all that. And I think we ought to do it till after Labor Day and look at it again. And if you want to look at that, the 8th, as far as opening up short-term rentals, that's fine with me too.
All right. Thank you.
Excuse me, did he say Labor Day or Memorial Day?
Memorial Day. I
Okay.
said Labor Day, but I meant Memorial Day.
I know, we always get it mixed up. But anyway, we're talking about a month from now anyway, right? So,
Yes.
or 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. But
Yes.
in fact, it's 4 weeks from today. But anyway, what I guess we've explained it, but anyway, the reason we're talking about opening up the parking lots, originally we closed the parking lots thinking that would cut down on the number of people coming in. Well, we figured out this past weekend that didn't cut down on the number of people coming in. So after working with the police and all, then it was, they thought it would be better if we just opened up the parking and got more of them off of the street. And so that way it was, that was the reason we opened up the parking lots. So hopefully that will help some. We are looking at closing some of the streets for parking. In other words, where they can't park on the side, we'll have to do that. Maybe we can work on that Friday. I'm not sure. But anyway, we are looking into that. So trying to make the congestion a little less congested on the highways. So anyway, that's the reason we opened the parking up. It was not to try to draw more people in. It's trying to cut down on some of the street congestion. All right.
And Doug, you also additionally are working on some enforcement for that additional enforcement for parking addition.
Right. Yep. We
So
tried.
we got, we had some people
Yeah.
on this weekend, and you've been working on that aspect.
Right. We have talked a lot about enforcement this week. We do have, as far as beach, we do have 4 interns coming in. I think they come in when, Jared? 15th? Is that when it is? That when he said? I think something like that. So that'll help out on the beach patrol anyway. And I mean, there's only so much you can do, and we're doing what we can. That's the best we can. So let's see, what have we got now? Our consent agenda is, do we have a motion to accept our consent agenda as presented?
This is Dwight. I'd like to make a motion to table item number 4, if it's for the regular agenda. Is that what we're talking about? Item number 4, zoning ordinance amendment section 6.19, on-premise electronic changeable copy signs. Go ahead. Also known as the LED lights. The planning board approved this ordinance after months of discussion. However, the minutes for the last month's planning board that ultimately made the decision to push this forward have not been formally made public. And I think that the residents of Surf City should have an opportunity to review those minutes and then come back and give them ample time to review it so that they can consider supporting such a measure before we take it on for a vote here as a council.
Okay, that's
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I would like to see that move forward until July, at our July meeting, and that'll give them time for the public to review it, and it will give us time in our June work session for the public to voice their opinion on this.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
So hopefully we'll have our June work session will be open to the public again.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Buddy, I think you're muted.
and unmute. You hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that was part of our consent agenda. I think it's part of our original agenda.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You
And
jumped ahead a little bit.
we can take that up when we get to it on the regular agenda items. I don't disagree with what either one of them has said so far. It's just that
You want to make a motion that we accept
consent agenda has been as presented. I would like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
do I have a second?
Second. This is Councilman Helms. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Okay, now, the public hearing, as far as, for Waterside public hearing has been postponed by them. And now we are to the public hearing for the sign ordinance. So I think we heard, to have it postponed. And so when do you want to postpone it to? I think, who made the?
I made the motion. This is Councilman Helms. I made the motion that we postpone it till July and look at it again the June. Stephanie, when is our June workshop?
It's on the 4th.
Friday, June the 19th.
Then we look at it there and public, we want public information, or we want the public comment on that time, and then we'll make a decision in our July meeting.
I think what you and Dwight are concerned about is the public being able to put their input into it. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is Dwight. The planning board is going to meet again on May 14th. That is when they're going to adopt those minutes. At that point, those minutes will be made public, as I understand it after talking to Ms. King. Our work session is scheduled for the 15th of May. We could discuss it some more then. And then as it's made public, I believe there's ample time to do this in June, to just go ahead and address it in our June meeting. Over.
I think we need to have it when we can have a public comment period. I'm talking about in-person comment.
I think June would be good, but if it's July, that gives more time. Either way, I don't think we need to vote on it today.
Okay. All right. So our motion is to, Don, when's your motion to postpone it to June or July?
July, and look at it in June and
At the workshop.
at the workshop.
I second that motion.
Okay, okay, that's your motion, okay. All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, public comment period, Stephanie.
Yes, first we have Miss Susan Edwards of 204 South Shore Drive.
All right, 1 second, I'll load it up.
Hi, my name is Susan Francisconi Edwards. My house is located at 204 South Shore Drive in Surf City, North Carolina. I left a message last time concerning not having people that were from out of town use our beaches before the people that owned homes there and paid taxes there were able to do it. And since then, you didn't listen, and you've got people from other states, Rhode Island and New York, out in front of my house using the beach, parking over there, and yet I'm not supposed to use my home, or other people aren't supposed to use home for rentals, and it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I've been a fan of Mr. Medlin's, and I support him. I know him and his wife, but this is crazy. I need some rentals coming in, and I think a lot of other people do. I'm not trying to be belligerent, but I think that people that own homes there and have a stake and pay taxes and pay insurance of almost $10,000 a year should be able to at least have a pass and a clean beach for their renters to come to that aren't infiltrated by a bunch of people that are from other areas, coming up from Wilmington, where they might have infections and whatnot. I am all for opening up the rentals. I think that if you got people from other states all over our beach, you might as well let the renters come back in. I think people are responsible and they know how to handle themselves. I do wish there could be some testing. I hear there's a pixel test. That's an easy test that is put out by Abbott, and that it can be done. These tests can be done right at a local place, but I think people could come with negative tests to rent a house out, and then you would know for sure that they were all right. And I think rental companies could do that. But if not, I think the renters should just be able to make that choice. I am missing a lot of rents, and I'm very, very upset about it. It's part of my main income. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm a human being, and so are you. And I think if anybody wants anybody to vote for them, they better start doing something that helps the people that pay the taxes and insurance and the things that keep the town going. I also was opposed to the high-rise bridge because I thought there were too many people that wanted to change Surf City and the nice ambiance we had there. And since then, you've got the Surf City Bridge put in because you said the high-rise bridge was going to cut down on traffic. And now you've got some kind of an ordinance trying to pass at this meeting, I believe, where there's going to be some kind of an easement onto Route 50 for a 238-acre parcel, or at least a section of it. And I am opposed to anything that puts more traffic on Route 50. I'm absolutely opposed to it. I think 600 houses going in off of that, or any place on that island where there's more traffic on Route 50 that doesn't need to be there, should not be allowed. And any easement that allows that, I'm absolutely opposed to. I hope that maybe somebody might listen to me there. I think last time I was just totally disregarded and the opposite was done. I don't know why that is, but I know there's people out near my place on Kinston Avenue over there that are parking and using the beach, like I said, from New York and Rhode Island, but I'm not supposed to have renters in there. Now that is absolutely ridiculous. Open up the beach. Give us back our houses. We pay the money for them. We bought them. I suffered my whole life to build my house there, and it's the only income that I have to subsidize me. And Democrat, Republican, just put it out of sight and just deal with what's in front of us, which is helping the people that keep Surf City going. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Mr. Jack Solak of 2408 South Shore Drive.
Hi, this is Jack Solak, 2408 South Shore Drive, Surf City. First of all, I want to give thanks to our manager, our mayor, the council members, and all the employees of Surf City for continuing to work for us during this COVID-19 problem. Next, I have two questions. Or suggestions or questions, whatever you want to call it. I would like to get an update on the federal nourishment project that's going on. I get a lot of questions on when are they going to start bringing in sand? Will it be November of this year or January of next year? Next is the Corp working on this. Still working. I'm sure they're still working on it. What's the progress that they're doing? How about Surf City? How about the staff of Surf City? How about the lawyer with Surf City? Are they working on it? Is North Topsail Beach working along and moving with us? The second question I have is, when do you expect the short-term rentals to start in Surf City? Is it still May 15th? The next suggestion I have is about the town updates. I get on the website and I look at the updates for every day, and they look identical. In fact, the last 5 looked absolutely identical. I would make a suggestion that only put them up there if they really change. In other words, if there's no change on May 20th, just put down May 20th, no update. And if there is an update, please mark it with a highlighted so that we know where to look. I mean, there's 13 different actions and 9 additional information lines. 22 lines I would have to read through to find out where, if and where there's any change on any one of them. It's pretty difficult. And then finally, a suggestion is to link or tell us where we can find the Facebook account on the website, the town website. Now I can find, when I went to I finally found it. It's on the town of Surf City Facebook, and it has a link back to the website. I really believe that they should have a link telling where we can find the Facebook account on the website itself. Thank you for all your help. God be with you. Bye.
And last, we have David Bird of 19 Maritime Drive.
Good morning. This is David Bird at 19 Maritime Drive, Surf City. Just got back from picking up some groceries and noticed that you would think it's May the 1st. It's a beautiful spring day in Surf City. 5 cars backed up at the circle trying to get on the island. I think we're going to be overrun, so you might as well make some plans. This place has got filling up with people right now. Another suggestion that you might want to consider, I hope you're considering some things, is the bars and et cetera that have outside lounge type atmosphere. Let them sit outside where the sunshine's helping them out. I mean, if you can take your box of food and set it at a table outside the restaurant, go for it. You better do something because people are going to overrun you, and Chief ain't got enough room for them all. Thank you and have a good meeting.
That is it for our public comment period.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Edwards, Mr. Solak, and Mr. Bird for their input and had some good ideas and good suggestions. Thank you. And at this time, we will turn it over to our manager.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to last meeting, I'll start off by just giving an intermediate report from the incident management team perspective. As a reminder, and I know council is certainly aware of this, but we have been operating under a emergency operations center type to manage our situation, our operations. So since the last update, the town's operational posture has remained largely unchanged as we continue to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Operational staff continue to constantly monitor the situation, making adjustments as needed, and remain optimistic that we will continue to see the overall solution improve as time moves forward. Internally, the incident management team remains operating at a level 1 activation, with operations being conducted within the incident command system parameters. IMT staff remain in near constant communication with one another, addressing issues that arise as a cohesive unit, and will continue working tirelessly towards that eventual return to normal, whatever that may look like. A timeline brief of notable events. April 9th, Governor Cooper signed the Executive Order 131, which tightened the physical distancing requirements for essential businesses. April 15th, the governor announced the path to move forward by outlining 3 key standards to be used in developing the reopening plan. That's testing, tracing, and trending. I do advocate for individuals to go to the DHHS website of the state, as a lot of these statistics are updated every day, and you can track those parameters outlined there. On the 18th, the town state of emergency amended to reflect reduction in some restrictions, public beach accesses, the park boat ramp, and Surf City Disc Golf Course were reopened to the public. Short-term rentals remained suspended until the 15th of May. On April 23rd, Governor Cooper signed Executive Order 135, which extended the stay-at-home order until the 8th of May, also including limits on mass gatherings, social distancing requirements, and new restrictions on congregate living facilities. Governor Cooper also outlined his phased reopening plan for North Carolina. On April 24th, Governor Cooper extended the closure of all public schools through the remainder of the 1920 school year. As of April 24th, not including employee salary expenditures, the town has expended $8,455.87 in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of that coming in cleaning supplies, personal protective equipment, and also opportunities for employees to work from home, some technological investments, etc. We do track those funds. Finance officer is doing a good job at that, so that when we're prepared, we are submitting our reimbursement request through FEMA. The EOC activation statistics, we were 12 days at a level 3, which is just monitoring, 3 days at a level 2, which is a partial activation, and now have been in 46 days at a level 1, which is a full activation. There have been 37 separate operational periods spanning 46 operational days. There's been 3 executive summaries produced, 81 situational reports. Incident action plans, there have been 37 IAPs developed, signed, and implemented. There's been 83 scheduled conference calls held. Spontaneous or spin-up calls are not accounted for. Getting into some of the public safety call volume statistics, overall there's been 100 violations of the executive order, state of emergency. There have been 52 ordinance citations from town ordinances, with 46 of those being parking violations. Overall, from the police department and the fire department, a majority of the reporting statistics have been down due to the stay-at-home order, most likely. There has been an increase in ordinance violations, of course, and then just a very minor increase in incident reports. But major things like accident reports, charges and citation totals, residence checks, arrest reports, vehicle stops, and written warnings are all significantly down. Again, as alluded, fire department statistics are pretty similar. Total emergency calls are down. EMS and rescue emergencies are down. Fire inspections, training, and training hours are all down. Some of those have other outlying effects. For example, there's been policies implemented that fire department is not responding to all EMS calls, which then brings down our call volume, and that's for the safety of our fire department personnel. Unless it's something that's like a cardiac call, they are not responding. So ongoing and current objectives is continuation of the ICS structure, continue to assess departmental readiness and identify departmental needs on a continual basis, assess on a daily basis the restrictions that are in place, enforce through voluntary compliance all orders and guidance as found in the applicable governor's executive orders and most current approved Town of Surf City Emergency Operations Center and state of emergencies, execute the public informational releases per the PIO release plan, and then execute our operational tempo as closely as possible. That's just a brief snapshot as to what the EOC has been working on. Again, this is a culmination of various individuals, town staff that all work together and communicate on a daily basis as far as what's going on within our town in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's similar to being in a hurricane emergency situation. We're just dealing with a different issue, but that ICS structure is being followed and has been successful to date. Transitioning into my update points as far as what's going on. Again, it continues to be a pleasure to serve the citizens of the town as well as council. Budget work is substantially completed. I'll provide council with a high-level overview of key areas, including the capital improvement plan. Staff looks forward to scheduling a budget workshop to focus on this critical piece of the town's operations and future. The beach nourishment project, I'll get into the federal project first. We continue our weekly project meetings with project partners, including North Topsail Beach and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The latest as of last week is that the project is moving forward with hopeful contract let this summer. This will be a phased project with the first phase to run 1 December to 31 March, which is this winter. The first phase will include placing approximately 2 million cubic yards of sand on the beach. This will begin at the Topsail Beach Surf City town line. The Corps has made that decision to tie into Topsail Beach's project, so it sounds like we'll be moving from south to north in subsequent phases. But phase 1 will begin in Surf City at the town line with Topsail Beach. So this is good news. Ultimately, and subsequent phasing will continue on next year. In total, the project will bring approximately 13 million cubic yards of sand between Surf City and North Topsail Beach. Staff continues to work towards obtaining necessary parking and access requirements, as well as securing perpetual easements necessary to move forward with the project partnership agreement. The FEMA sand haul or emergency berm project, as reported, the project is complete. I think I wanted to specifically thank TI Coastal, Chris Gibson, for their efforts and communication throughout the process, as well as CM Mitchell and Matt Mitchell for their efforts and responsiveness. We certainly received a lot of calls, a lot of feedback from citizens. We were able to work with them to the best of our abilities, and whenever an issue came up, both CM Mitchell and TI Coastal were there to work with us and try to get the job done. As a follow-up to that, last week, an application was submitted for supplemental funding to cover the differerences in reimbursable expenses through FEMA and out-of-pocket costs by the town for the sand haul project. I had reported we were going to try and apply for this grant for the federal project as well, but we just don't have a budget for that first phase, so I was unable to report on a budget. But nonetheless, we'll ask for the maximum amount of $2.5 million, understanding that the overall pot is $11.5 million available to all coastal jurisdictions in the state. So it's going to be a very difficult process, but we're hopeful that we'll see some funding out of that effort in applying for it. Just a couple more supplements on the coronavirus is that we continue to develop revenue loss information, and again, tracking our expenditures related to the virus and response. And also too, there's been some new legislation that's been approved by the state in regards to local government relief for revenue losses. So very early on, before we even got indication of this, we started tracking what our revenue losses were in an attempt to be ready to submit that information. And when we talk to our legislators, we're able to provide that and what that really looks like. We're not unique in the state. We do have other jurisdictions that are tourism reliant, but we are unique at the same time. So our revenues are diversified in different areas, and we're making sure that we're tracking that. And finally, on Friday, I had sent out a employee reopening plan that went to all employees so that they could understand, be kept in the loop as far as what's going on in an effort to bring staff back to our facilities to serve the public. That's what our job is, and that's what we want to be doing. We just want to make sure that we're safe in those efforts, and we think that the plan that's been laid out is a very prudent plan, but I do note that it is subject to change at any time based on additional guidance or information that we do receive. At this time, that's the conclusion of my report, Mr. Mayor, and I can certainly answer any questions that council has.
Council have any questions of him? Okay. You want to do the update on the budget process?
I do. It'll be my pleasure. And again, understanding that we're going to try and schedule a specific meeting to go over all of the details. All that information was sent to you. I asked you not to be overzealous over the weekend and memorize everything. So I hope you were able to enjoy the weekend. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to share my screen again, go over a brief presentation. So that everybody can see sort of the highlights moving forward. So let me try this real quick, and I think we'll be able to get it figured out. All right. So as we move forward towards the new fiscal year, which begins July 1, local governments start on this process fairly early so that we can have an understanding of what the needs for the next fiscal year. And then when we look at capital improvement plans, that typically carries us out 5 years. But you know, we're not funding everything within year one. So real quick, just going over through some accomplishments of the current fiscal year. As discussed, we did a $12.5 million sand haul project. We have a contract that's going to be let for the repaving of J.H. Batts. We completed the pipeline project and closed that out. That was going to the new Surf City Elementary and Middle School. And then, of course, the myriad of Hurricane Florence recovery projects, North End paving, the Nelva Alberry Park, the crossover reconstructions, and the Welcome Center repairs and upgrades. Current fund balances, general fund 6.8 million. We do have 71% of that in reserves. Again, this is being a hurricane prone community. We need to have those on hand to pay for expenditures when we are under duress in situations. Accommodation tax fund at 2.2 million, water and sewer fund at 2.7 million, and the beach nourishment fund at 10.19 million. Anticipated projects to be completed in the upcoming fiscal year. Number one up there is Town Hall. As you know, we work with contractor and other partners, project partners on a weekly basis. They'll be, again, here to update you at your work session on the 15th. It's just status updates. I signed the stormwater permit last week, and we had our express review meeting of that permit yesterday. So we anticipate having a stormwater permit in hand in the next 10 to 15 days. We're looking forward to a potential for a mainland parkland acquisition. Like to work on a pavement conditioning survey. This essentially outlines what our needs are in our town-owned roads so that we can make focused investments on repairs, repaving, etc. We look forward to procuring new fire apparatus for our fire department, and then a multitude of water and sewer projects listed below. Again, these have been provided to council, so there should be a somewhat general understanding of these projects to be able to move forward. So when we look at revenue projections, this is an important piece of the budget. I guess, again, a budget is a best guess as to what our expenditures will be for the future year. And we got to balance those with the revenues that we would anticipate seeing. So this is just a basic snapshot of what that looks like. Different general fund revenue sources, your ad valorem taxes, which is just your property tax, local option sales tax, your utilities tax, building permits and fees, your solid waste fees. You had a 9.7, looks like fiscal year to date revenue is 9.3. So we are on track to see the revenues throughout the remainder of the fiscal year, but then budgeting pretty close to last year's revenues at 9.89 million. So what that tells us is that our general fund expenditures need to be closely in line with that potential revenue resource. So when we evaluate things like new positions or new equipment and vehicles and those types of things, we always have to keep in mind what our revenue is. So we have to keep that balanced. Your accommodation tax fund comes from occupancy taxes. Obviously, we will anticipate seeing a reduction in those based on the short-term rental, as well as just the overall coronavirus issue and stay-at-home, et cetera. But as you can see, the collected revenues have exceeded the budgeted amount, which is good news for us. Your water and sewer fund, again, as you can see, you budgeted 1.972 in 1920. We're at 1.4, and we'll look to see almost 2 million in revenue come in for next fiscal year. Something we are tracking, and again, finance and utility staff are doing a fantastic job at this, is the state has put a hold on utility payments for those that cannot make those during these difficult times. So we've identified some revenue shortfalls here, again, keeping our finger on the pulse there so that we can be prepared shall opportunities arise through the local General Assembly at the state level or any federal funds that we might be available to basically to get to offset these losses. Your system development fees are not shown as, budgeted revenues. It's simply because these go into capital accounts. So our capital expenditures are based on those system development fees that come in through water and sewer, new hookups, and those are expected to be used for the capital needs of our system. As we have more users, we have new needs, as everybody knows. So sort of getting into the capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan, or CIP, is what you'll typically hear it called, is the multi-year planning mechanism by which the town council allocates limited financial resources to implement long-term goals as defined in the town strategic plan, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and other similar planning documents. So typically you want to see projects identified in some sort of plan as a need that then get translated into the CIP. What we've developed is this based on 5 major objectives as a component for the town's budget and financial planning process, which helps the town rationally and intelligently plan for repair, replacement, and acquisition of capital items that are necessary in providing high quality services to the citizens of Surf City, assists in fiscal planning by forecasting capital demands together with future revenues and expenditures, ensures better coordination, evaluation, and planning of projects to serve the community and its needs, serves together with the annual budget and other financial plans as a guide to decision making for the town council, the manager, and staff, and serves as a systematic and comprehensive analysis of capital needs, increasing the probability of making rational budgetary judgments since improvements are identified, prioritized, and matched to the projected fiscal resources of the town. The recommended fiscal year 2021 CIP includes a total of 13 projects, totaling a little over $3.5 million for the general fund and water and sewer fund. 6 capital projects are identified in the general fund, which total approximately $1.4 million. And then water and sewer fund projects are the remainder of that, 7 projects at $2.148 million. The complete 5-year CIP represents projects totaling almost $19 million for the general fund and water and sewer fund. When a CIP is developed, even though it's a 5-year plan, it gets reviewed every year. So projects may fall out of that CIP because they may become not relevant to the town. There might be something new in technology, or it just might be redundant. We might have figured out a different solution for that. So year over year, we will continue to review this CIP and make adjustments, and then each fiscal year adopt projects that we will develop specific capital budgets for and execute those projects within that fiscal year. So, again, the CIP is organized into 5 functional categories or elements in order to group projects with similar items. So we have a transportation element. This includes the construction of newer improved roadways, sidewalks, and multi-use paths. Implementation of the bike and pedestrian plan is funded in this element. And then next year, we will start looking towards that pavement conditioning survey to guide major improvements to our roadways if they are warranted through that study. So as you can see, we have funds that are identified through those future years. You can see the total capital costs of those needed repairs, and then the specific projects we can look at. What can $50,000 get for us in fiscal year 2021, and try to identify those projects based on some sort of prioritization. Parks, Recreation, and Tourism element funds the acquisition of land for new parks and greenway facilities, the construction of park and recreation amenities, and major maintenance of current facilities. Implementation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is funded in this element. So there are identified projects in here, specific projects, being a fishing pier and gazebo, but we're gonna try to push that off into fiscal year 21-22. An inclusive playground, the new Mainland Park land acquisition, as well as the skate park that's been presented in the public, and grant applications to fund that are in. You can see the offset with revenues that are identified in grant funding. Those are not guaranteed. I do try to stress that, but we will try to offset any expenditures with grants if they're out there. So we should look at that. Also too, for the Mainland Park land acquisition, we're looking to potentially fund that over 2 fiscal years to reduce the burden on 1 single fiscal year moving forward. Public safety element, this includes acquisition of capital equipment to support the operations of 3 public safety departments in the town, which are fire, police, and emergency management. Public safety facilities are considered in the public facilities element. So you have projects like emergency management Viper site, which helps our communications throughout the, so you can see the totals in there, some of the offsets with the grant funding, and then a capital reserve expenditure to try and accommodate these expenses over the next fiscal year. The next element is the public facilities and grounds, major maintenance of general government and public safety facilities and infrastructure. This element also funds improvements to communications and technology infrastructure. So as you can see, our major project here is going to be the new town hall, which is budgeted for, and then we have some grant funding. We've gone over this with council. So we've got different varying elements of funding coming in, FEMA reimbursements on or payouts for Old Town Hall, looking at the public sale of the land and structure that the police department is located. So those will help offset the expenses, and we think we've got it down to a fund balance expenditure of $238,000 out of a $6 million project. So that's pretty good. moving forward. There's also a request for an enclosed tractor with a sweeper, which would be $55,000. We're going to look at some cost saving on some of these things. If we can't purchase something, is there opportunities for a lease agreement or some other element of that? The water and sewer utility element, again, that's fairly self-explanatory, but know that these are very high priority items. So we look at water and sewer projects, the water treatment plant. We have a brine disposal. The brine is the effluent, basically, of the salt that's added into the system to soften the water. So at this point, we're trying to divert that brine waste from our wastewater treatment plant, but that does constitute a capital project that we would need to execute. Similarly, we have iron content within our water supply, and we do treat for that. But we're looking at trying to divert that waste from going into the wastewater treatment plant and looking at a land application option for that. There's a stormwater project that we're looking to execute. We've got in future fiscal year the subaqueous crossing of the intercoastal waterway, the addition of well number 6, which is another high production well. You have your wastewater water treatment filter media, the headworks project at the wastewater treatment plant, the Juniper Swamp expansion, and then the Juniper Swamp disposal of areas identified as P1 through P5. There's already engineering and work going on with a lot of that. And just to add on to this, we were able to apply to DEQ for a state revolving loan, and specifically under this Additional Supplemental Appropriations for Disaster Relief Act, or ASADRA, as you can see here, as our socioeconomic and demographic numbers typically don't allow us to look or apply for state revolving loan programs. But when it's tied to the disaster from Hurricane Florence, we were able to apply for potentially a 25% principal loan forgiveness, which in other terms, essentially it'd be a 25% grant on a couple of those projects. So utility staff has worked hard and working with a consultant to get those applications moving forward and getting those applied for, just to try and offset some of those capital costs. Moving forward in the budget, we have a consideration of a couple of new positions, one being a Fields and Grounds Director. This was presented to Council, I guess probably 2 months ago, trying to take over all public facilities and keeping the realm within one single department, provide some relief to Parks and Recreation, but they would certainly continue to work directly with Parks and Recreation on our grounds and facilities. This is also where your streets would fall under that position and that new department. We would utilize existing staff to fill the roles of all of that. So we would just be looking for the director position on that. Secondarily, we have a GIS technician that certainly would like to see perform GIS duties for the town. There's exponentially, these provide benefits for all departments, from water and sewer to community development, to just general information that we can provide to our citizens through GIS technology. So what we're recommending is that we start this as a part-time position, to keep our costs down, see what we can get accomplished in a fiscal year, and then if we can show that it's worth the cost to fund a full-time position, we would ask council to do that in future fiscal year. But we've also been made aware, since this has been prepared, that there's a potential grant opportunity that could fund half of a position. So we're asking for additional information on this, and if we can present that back to council, still at somewhat of this relative cost at $25,000 annually, I'd certainly like to do that because I think our GIS needs are exponential, and we certainly could benefit from that. So moving into sort of the capital improvement stuff, and then we have capital outlay items, which we did make a change that items that are more than 50,000 go on to capital improvement. Things that are less than 50,000 will go into capital outlay. Generally, these are vehicle and equipment purchases that don't meet that $50,000 threshold. So you can see that you have a vehicle requests in emergency management, in police department, in fire department, community development, and then equipment in parks and recreation. So finance officer and I have looked at these, and we've got some recommendations. Again, with some of the uncertainties with the budget and future fiscal years, we're asking to push some of these off if we can. Again, look at lease payments, leasing equipment if we can, especially in our environment. So we'll be working with department heads to try and still fulfill their needs if we can, but also understanding if we cannot, then things just sometimes have to be cut. But again, we've presented that back to department heads, and we'll work with them over the next couple of weeks to try to refine some of their expenditures. And then the other thing we just wanted to note is that the capital outlay facilities within the sewer were moved into the capital project. So we didn't cut that, we just moved it into capital improvement plan and looked to fund those through that. And then we did note that, as revenues become clear throughout the fiscal year, the town can still consider coming back and amending the budget to reflect the potential costs. So we might see more revenue than what we're projecting. We might see less revenue, but council always reserves that ability to do budget ordinance amendments if necessary. We try to reduce those as much as possible, throughout the fiscal year with our current uncertainties that we have going on. So again, we're going to move on. Water and sewer fees. These are things that we need to look at to cover the operational costs of our water and sewer department. And then, as you could see, we've got some pretty major costs coming up that we need to look at. So with the fiscal year 2021 budget, there's a recommendation to increase utility rates for high users. That would come at approximately 30%, but we're prepared to provide you information to show that this is not an impact on your day-to-day users in regards to our residents and businesses. It is a smaller percentage for that. And the increase is done in a manner to promote water conservation so that the low usage customer, typically the permanent residential customer, is not impacted or has minimal impact. And as years go by, the cost of operating the utility system continues to increase. There are many system improvements that need to be made in order to accommodate our growth needs as well. So the more water that we produce, the more chemicals we put in it, those are operational costs that we have to account for. And through our rate structure is where we recoup that. It's not getting cheaper to run a water and sewer department within the town, unfortunately. And again,
Kyle,
yes, sir.
Kyle, sorry, I've got a question. In regards to the rates, what you didn't need to give me this answer now, but I'd like to know in the future, what are our rates compared to others? Standard rates, either by state or by county or by nearby municipalities. I would just like to know, to compare and contrast where we are.
Absolutely. The School of Government through UNC does a fantastic job at doing water and sewer financing. and they have a dashboard that I know that finance director has presented prior. But we'll get some additional comparisons for council when we move towards our budget workshop, and then we'll give you a snapshot of what our current rates look like, what our proposal is, so that you can see where changes are recommended. Again, this is the manager's recommendation, and we'll need concurrence with council. But we're gonna show you what our costs are, and what our needs are, and give you all a fair shot to review those before you look at that. So this next slide basically shows you what the current rate, what the proposal is for residential. So you can see water, what your current rates are, and then what those proposed rates are. So, your vast majority, 93%, I think, of water customers fall into these two yellow rows. So as you can see, there's no rate increase that's even proposed for those. We really wanted to look at a sensible approach and look at water conservation, so that we're not incentivizing people to use more water because it's cheap. That's not an approach that we think we need to take with a resource such as water. So moving into sewer, again, similar things here, but you do see a fairly drastic rate increase for your heavy users in sewer. But again, on the residential side, it's fairly limited the amount of customers that we see that actually exceed that 5,000 gallons a month threshold. And again, we'll continue to provide this information to you and give you as much information as you need to help you make a decision.
Okay, thanks.
Similar to the commercial side, you can see these two columns. Again, it's the same concept for conservation, as a sliding scale, as opposed to just doing a blanket 5, 10, 15% increase. We really wanted to make some sense with it. So again, once you get to that 5,000 gallons a month, customer, those rates do go up. There's no way I can sugarcoat that or put that in a better sense, but we can give you all the information possible to help you make that decision. Moving on into the Beach Nourishment Fund. Again, we're still waiting on FEMA to give us a final word. Our inclination is that we'll see a healthy return on our request for reimbursements. We also had revenues come in through a special appropriation that was able to be put back in there. So if we can anticipate, approximately the 12 million in refund from FEMA, we'll be looking fairly well within the Beach Nourishment Fund, and we will then essentially parlay that into our federal project, and we're currently working with the Corps on whether or not it makes more sense for the town to look at a 30-year payback on this, or since we're in a phased approach, does it make more sense to have a substantial expenditure so that we can try and dodge interest rates and even worse, potential compounding interest rates year over year. So we'll continue to look at that, and we want to make the best financial decision possible for the town, so that if we have the buying power essentially to fund these projects up front with a healthy beach nourishment fund, we will. But again, we'll continue to bring information to you so that we can make those decisions together. So that's just some information on the 10-cent tax levy on beach nourishment and what that's been able to get us. Again, the federal project, we had just learned basically last week that they were going to do this in a phased approach, with that first phase being in Surf City at the 2 million cubic yards. And again, there's not to bounce back and forth too much, but The Corps will then work on expanding the environmental constraints on putting sand on the beach, which they have anticipated will save both towns and the federal government millions of dollars over the course of this project. So we stand to support them in the decisions that they make. We've got a good partner in North Topsail Beach who, we understand that's somewhat of a blow to them, but understand there's going to be future years that they're getting sand and we're not. So, we do thank them for their partnership in this, and we'll continue to work with them on a weekly basis, if not more, to try to get this project off the ground. But again, we're looking at essentially 7 months before new sand is already being placed on the beach again. So this is good news, with the federal project. So we kind of had a summary slide here, and is the desire of the council to hold an additional special meeting for budget review? I think absolutely. So if council is okay, I think we identified next Tuesday, which is the 12th of May, to look at meeting again to spread out. We'll have paper copies of everything to go through departmental budget requests, go through the capital improvement plan, so that you have a comfort level with this, because we have to have a budget adopted essentially June 30 to move into the new fiscal year at July 1. The challenges that we've seen with the coronavirus, I think are unprecedented. I think we could have easily said, well, we'll adopt the operating budget of the current fiscal year into 2021. But we feel that there's enough needs in this town that we prepare and move forward. That's something that we feel strongly about. With a high growth rate, there's just things that we've got to do. So I do commend finance staff. I commend our department heads for adhering to their fiscal prudency and presenting their budgets to the manager as well as the finance director, and those have been reviewed. So we do thank them. I want to thank them for that. But then moving forward, that May 15th kind of gets pushed back to May 12th, which is a good thing. And you'll be able to see, and you already have seen what the manager's recommended budget is on that. Again, we'll have some tweaks that we need to make and want your input so that we can make additional adjustments. And then we would be prepared to have on May 18th through the 29th, the recommended budget open for public inspection, so people can come in and be aware of what's in the fiscal year 2021 budget. June 5th, hold the mandatory and statutorily required public hearing on the budget and seek approval of that recommended budget. And then we move into July 1st under a new operational budget for fiscal year 2021.
Kyle,
yes,
this
sir.
is Dwight. Yeah, Dwight, quick question. On the, just to be clear on the timeline, June 2nd, we have our council meeting. I believe it's the normal standard first Tuesday of the month. June 5th will be a Friday, so would that be a special session for June 5th?
That could have been a typo. Yeah, we would hold, I'm sorry, that would be, June, the public hearing will be on June 2nd.
Okay, that's the council meeting. And then to follow up on top of that, May 15th, the presentation to us, is that going to be during the work session?
Well, we had this prior to acknowledging the 12th as a special meeting for council to meet on.
Do you have a time for that on the 12th?
Yeah, so that we would recommend a 1 o'clock start time, and then we will just go until we're complete. I don't want to give an ending time because there might still be business that we need to conduct beyond a 5 o'clock. We hope we'd be able to get it in, but again, I don't want to bound us by that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
And then if there's any other opportunities as we progress through the budget, we're more than happy to set additional special meetings to review this. And I think what we're going to try to do is we'll have an in-person meeting on the 12th at the Welcome Center, spaced out as much as we possibly can. And then we can stream the meeting from probably an audio perspective, because we'll be flipping through a lot of paper information, but the information that's been provided in the budget and CIP will certainly be available. So that's the high level overview. Again, I do commend staff and council for the accomplishments in the current fiscal year. I know there's been challenges as we've sort of progressed through Hurricane Florence and trying to get back out of recovery mode in that. And we're still in recovery mode with that, and will continue to be. So we just hope that we might be able to get through a normal year. But again, we've already off to a tough start. But as the mayor had mentioned in his opening remarks, we'll get through it. And you do certainly have a competent staff to be able to help you and move forward with this stuff. So again, if there's any more questions, I'll be more than happy to try and get those answered.
If not, Cal, I appreciate it. And I want to thank you and all the different departments, and of course, Ashley and all of the finance department. I know everybody has put a lot of work in this, as well as having to do coronavirus work at the same time. So I appreciate it. And a lot of it had to be done from home. But we're getting it done anyway, whether we're doing it from home or in the office. And like I say, once again, I appreciate all the work that you all have done. And we should have all the information that we need as far as the board to make our decision. And we look forward to seeing it. And we'll even be looking at it even further breakdown than what you presented today. So once again, we appreciate it. And I guess next is council forum. So I'll go to Miss Teresa first. Councilman Batts.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Cal, for the update. Thank you for all the hard work from staff, and especially from our police department, our officers over the last couple of weeks, dealing with violations and so forth. Surf City is definitely a place where a lot of families come to for just a day trip, and most of those day trippers, they do respect our beaches. However, the cabin fever syndrome has caused some havoc over the last week with the beautiful weather. So that it has caused us to produce a number of violations, and is the reason why we're having to update our restrictions. I am very proud of Mayor Medlin and council and staff for doing all that they do to keep our citizens safe. We have dealt with this for the last couple months. We're all new at it. I don't want us to give up, sticking with the face coverings, for a couple extra weeks just to see how it goes, especially with the influx of people coming, especially to the big box stores, I think is something that we need to take precaution on. And I don't want us to give up on staying safe in that matter. Thank you to all our residents and other citizens that have come together to make masks, to check on your neighbors, to go to the grocery store for your neighbors. Thank you to the retailers that have helped us to maintain safety while providing goods to our community, such as all the restaurants that have stayed open. Thank God, or we would all be starving if it wasn't for the restaurants and for our grocery stores. Thank you also to the local organizations that have really stepped up to the plate to offer their support by donating their time, money, and resources to support the families during financial and physical and mental times in our lives. Also, just one more thing, our community has lost a lot of residents, a lot of familiar faces during the last couple months that a lot of us, we know these families. We would normally be there to support them physically. I know we have called a lot of them. One of those residents that I want to just remember at this time is one of our first ladies of Surf City, which was Margie Patiotti. She will always be remembered in a lot of our hearts. And like I say, there are many others that have passed away during this time, not trying to short anyone, because they are all have been within our hearts. Their families have. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay. Dwight, you want to be next?
Sure, sir. Thank you for your leadership, first and foremost. As we begin to reopen and return to our normal way of life, I think we should continue to take precaution, especially those over the age of 65 and those with underlying conditions. But we simply cannot stay closed forever. Livelihoods, I think, are just as important as lives. So I think we can take an opportunity to look for ways where we can save both lives and livelihoods. I am in support of the steps that we are taking to look for ways to return to normal. Put things in perspective, our country has survived a lot of things, from World War II, the Korean War, the Spanish flu, Vietnam, the global war on terrorism, and now coronavirus. But I think together, I'm optimistic and confident that we can get through this. It's gonna take us some discipline and some time, but I think we'll get there. In closing, I'd like to thank the emergency management team led by James Horn, our emergency management director, our town manager, Kyle Brewer, and every department head from each functional area, to include all town employees at every level, because they're the ones that have been doing the heavy lifting. The job has not stopped for them. Our colleagues, but a special thank you to Chief of Police Ron Shanahan and his department for the hard work trying to maintain good order, especially during these difficult times. The arrest of a convicted and registered sex offender most recently, I think, just is a testament of the hard work that they do to keep our community safe. So I want to say thank you for getting that animal, I hate to call him that, but that's truly what he is, off the street, and for keeping our community safe. To our residents, I'd ask that you please continue to remain calm, support each other, stay safe, and most of all, stay healthy. Thank you all for the hard work, and God bless you. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Dwight. Okay, Jeremy? Councilman Sugar.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first, I wanted to commend you, Doug. I mean, I know that they've been saying that, but I just want to say on your diligence for being proactive instead of reactive. I just want to use an example from last weekend. You took your entire weekend away from your family, and you spent time riding on a side-by-side on the beach just to make sure you had a pulse of what was going on, because you knew that people were going to be reacting to the influx of people. First of all, you get a negative when I see a negative post. Somebody says, "Oh, he's not practicing social distancing because he's riding right next to somebody on a police officer on a side-by-side." And I'm thinking to myself, no matter what you do, no matter what you do, there's always a twist or a spin to it. So I think you continue to do what you're doing. You have the interest of Surf City 100%. I know that I know all the council are behind you on that, especially myself. And I also wanted to, I know the council's been working diligent on fielding calls. I know I talk with Councilwoman Teresa Batts quite frequently because her business is right next to mine, and so we get to pretty much daily have some conversations. And And I know that the First Lady spoke today. She discussed about her comments went unnoticed, and no one's calls go unnoticed. No one's comments go unnoticed. Every person that calls us, emails us, or sends or talks to us, we have a discussion about it, and all the council work on answers for those. Sometimes it's not the answer you want, or sometimes it's not in the time factor you want, but we are working on that. I like to say, remember that everybody wins when we all have the solution in mind. The solution is to get back to normality here, but also is to create a safe environment. And I want to echo what Teresa said on supporting our local businesses. Buy anything you can from a local business at any time you can. If it's just something small, it will help them get back to normal. So instead of going down to the Porter next Walmart, spend an extra $1 maybe and do something here for one of the retailers. I know they're going to be getting open soon. So that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Jeremy. Okay, Don, Mr. Helms, Councilman.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank all of our citizens that are watching this. Also, I would like to thank our citizens for their patience and understand that we didn't realize, we knew it was going to be bad last weekend, but I don't think any of us realized how bad it really got as far as the parking and the people on the beach. But I understand that most of the people, once they got parked and got on the beach, they pretty well did the social distancing. And if we can do something with this mask, and these people, when they go into a business and everything else, use your mask. It's for your safety and the other person's safety also. I'm glad to see that we finally got through with the sand haul on the beach. And I want to thank Kyle and James Horn, and I especially want to thank Jason for getting this organized to where people can see us on live instead of by phone. I think it's a whole lot more personal when you can see someone to talk to them. And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate everything Kyle's done. I want to thank all the employees with the town. We've had fire department working extra. We've had police department working extra, and our water department, our sewer department, everybody in the town. And I just hope that people would still be patient. I know it's not fun being confined to your home or everywhere. You got to watch where you go, and the restaurants are not open. If they're open, you got to go in and get your food. Look, we dealt with worse. When we got a hurricane, it's worse. We don't have water. A lot of places don't have power. We've got all that now. So be thankful for it and just appreciate everything everybody is doing. And like I said, God bless.
Thank you, Don. Councilman Buddy Fowler.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I think most of them have covered everything. I just would like to echo the congratulations and the praise that they've passed out. And I'd like to say that, you know, I'm very proud of our team. We don't have any I's and me's in it. We have a we, including our community. Our community has had the patience and had the understanding and the fortitude to work with the council and try to understand what we're trying to do is best for them and their safety, as well as the community. We have a great town staff. Mr. Brewer's doing a great job in leading them. They've done a masterful job during this difficult time that we all have been facing. The other thing that comes to mind, we have lost some people in our community due to this pandemic, and We will continue to do so, but we also need to understand how generous, caring, and giving this community is in protecting each other, looking out for each other, and coming together for the betterment of the community. And we're certainly appreciative of that. I would like to thank you for your leadership and your dedication to the town of Surf City, which comes as no surprise to me over the years that I've known you and the years that you've worked here in Surf City. And we always have the Monday morning quarterbacks, but this council, and I want to thank my colleagues for the job they do. We face difficult decisions every day. And these decisions are not taken lightly, and they're not made lightly. And they mull over these and try to do the best they can and make the best decision they can for the community and for the town. And I think that's all we could ever ask of anyone, to try to do the right thing for the right reasons. And this council does that, and I appreciate them and what they stand for. And also, we've always had a National Day of Prayer. And this time, we probably won't be able to do it as we have in the past, gather and do it. But it's held on May the 7th at noon. And it can be, go to YouTube and you can tap into it. I would certainly encourage everyone to join that if you would. I intend to participate in it again this year. I've never missed it since it's been started. And I thank all the people and all our community for their understanding and their patience in trying to deal with this, and ask them to continue to stay with us, be safe, practice safe distances apart, wear your mask, and let's come back stronger from this. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, buddy. Let's see, have I got everybody now? Think so. I'm gonna be very short. I'm gonna agree with everyone on what they said. We all have our citizens in mind. We're all trying to look after them and protect them as best as we can. I agree. When I got out there last week, I could not believe it. I mean, I just, it did look like a holiday. And I guess in a way it was. It was the first weekend. I guess people figured that they could get away with getting out of their house and getting to the beach and getting back to a little bit normal. And I think it's going to continue like that for a little while anyway. People still going to want to get out. So, but I'd just like to reiterate, working together, staying a family and loving community that we are. I mean, we are a warm community, and we welcome people in, whether they're from North Carolina, or whether they're from New York, or whether they're from Florida or California. I mean, we welcome people. That's just the way we are. That's the kind of people we are. And, but I think we all have the same goal. And that's, we've got to stay diligent in safety as we get back open so that our businesses can make it. We got those in mind as well. So just be patient with us, be patient with other people, whether they're your full-time neighbor or whether they're a visitor from somewhere else. Just treat them as a family and friend. And so at this time, I will turn it over to, I think our attorney may have something he wants to say. So we'll turn it over to Brian Eads. Mr. Brian?
Mayor, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A few things, I'll try not to be duplicative to Kyle's very extensive report, but the federal project, we did have one of the public comments asked about the progress of the federal project. So I'd like the public to know that last Wednesday on April 29th, we had a long conference call with the Corps. We're having those every other week. The newest announcement is that it will be a phased project. However, our timeline, internal timelines for our real estate and easement needs remain almost the same. We still have to get easements for the entire project by late June, early July. There's two pieces of significant legislation that have been passed that affect the town. One is the rollout of the new Chapter 160D has been postponed from January 1, 2021 to August 1st, 2021. That'll give us 7 additional months to roll that out. And I think the General Assembly did that to accommodate the COVID-19 strains it's had on staff. And so that gives us some breathing room on that. Secondly, just yesterday, May 4th, Session Law 2020-3 was passed by the General Assembly. That has a civil suit immunity clause in it. It's in a new chapter, section 66-460. And essentially what that provides is that if you are a essential business, and governmental entities are considered essential businesses, you are immune from negligent lawsuits if someone contracts COVID-19 doing business with you. Now, if you're grossly negligent, you're not immune, but that gives essential businesses, which includes the town, a level of immunity in the unfortunate event if someone were to contract it while being at one of the town facilities. Next, I'll move on to the School of Government. Professor Lovelady announced yesterday that they are launching a 4-part webcast related to COVID-19 issues for governmental staff. The first one has to do with having remote planning and zoning hearings. As you know, we've been delaying a lot of our public hearings. That will happen this Friday. The next one's a 160D update. That will happen Friday, May 16th. The third one is pertains to permits and inspections from afar. That's the title of it. I'm reading the title. That webcast will happen on May 22nd. And the fourth and final one is the title of that webcast is Adjusting to a New Normal. The subtitle is Professional Responsibilities, Practical Flexibilities, and Ethical Dilemmas, all related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, Mayor, with respect to the COVID-19 response, I want to let the public know that we have weekly conference calls with the corresponding elected officials with Topsail Beach and North Topsail Beach. We don't have a quorum on these calls, but we have the managers, key staff, and a few elected officials from each attend those in an effort to coordinate island-wide to the extent we can, a uniform response. What one town does affects the other 2 towns and vice versa. Would like to remind the public that when we have these declarations and the dates in there, those dates are not set in stone. They are more of benchmarks, planning tools, and we make our decisions based on the conditions as they exist. So just wanted everyone to keep that in mind. Some questions arose earlier about enforcement. A violation of a state of emergency is a criminal offense, so that enforcement is solely through the law enforcement. In Surf City, it'd be our police department. The code enforcement officers would not be enforcing these restrictions. It's my understanding that the governor's press conference this afternoon will shed some light on what he intends to do at the expiration of his stay-at-home order, which presently I believe is scheduled to expire on the 8th. I had a question, and I think the public would like to know this too, because we didn't talk about it earlier. The amended state of emergency with the face covering requirement, I don't recall us discussing when that would become effective. So if I missed that, let me know. But while we have those members of the public listening, we might want to discuss that now.
What about the 8th?
I was thinking that would be the most logical time, but I wanted, the elected body to weigh in on it. So does anybody have any objections with the 8th? Okay. And that is my report. other than I do need to speak with the elected body in closed session for a few moments.
Okay.
I'd like to make a
Mr.
motion.
Mayor, can he give me the GS for my motion?
I have it here. I make a motion to go into closed session.
Hold up before we go into closed session. We got
Go
a
ahead.
couple more things we're going to do. I reversed it a little bit today. I didn't realize we were going to go into closed session, but I was going to end the meeting a little bit different. But I'm afraid a lot of people will leave us that are listening to us will leave us when we go into closed session. So what I would like to do before we go into closed session is ask Buddy if he will pray for our people and for us as we move forward with this. And just ask the Lord to give his guidance on us. Okay. Councilman Fowler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be glad to. Let's bow our heads. Our Father, we come to you today asking with a humble heart, asking your guidance, asking your grace. Father, we ask that you continue to give us patience, understanding, and above all in this time of uncertainty, be with us, lift our spirits up. Father, we ask that you also continue to be with us as we go out in our community. Give us the means to help our fellow man, Lord. Let us be of one community, not of one soul. Father, we ask you continue to be with us as we move through this unprecedented time. We ask that you lift up our spirits, keep us high, and Father, above all, let us enjoy your grace. We ask all these things in your most precious name. Amen.
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 Hey, I think we missed the Pledge of Allegiance earlier.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to end with.
Okay, thank you.
Remind us of the country that we have, the freedom that we have, and the strength that we have. So I will ask Don to sing the Star Spangled. If he can't sing the Star Spangled Banner, we'll let him do the Pledge of Allegiance. Helms.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, now
are we ready?
Now. All right.
So I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11 Alpha 3, attorney-client privilege.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilman Helms. Can we take a 10-minute recess between this?
Okay, I guess, can we do that, Jason? Okay, let's take a 10-minute recess. Well, hey there, Ashley. How'd you get in there?
You've been here.
Yeah,
I've been here.
You've been?
Yeah.
What you got right on the wall back there?
That's a prayer. I need a lot of prayers.
That is right.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Like that. Okay. All right. 10-minute recess.
Hey, Mayor, I've got a question for Jason. Jason, are you still there?
The motion carried, so
Okay.
the only thing we're waiting on is Jason to give us the go-ahead that we were secure, so I consider.
That's what I'm waiting on. I've got a question for Jason.
So we're in recess, but Jason, I believe Councilman Torres wants to make sure we're secure.
Motion carried. Back in regular session now. Okay, does somebody want to, do we need to do, we don't need to do anything, do we, Brian?
Yeah,
Just a motion to recess it until, recess this meeting until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Please.
I make the motion to recess this meeting.
Did you say, Stephanie, did you say something?
Nope, just please.
Oh, please. Okay.
I make a motion that, this is Councilman Helms, I make a motion that we recess this meeting till 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And for the public, just, that's May 6th, 10 a.m.
Right, May the 6th at 10 a.m. Okay, anything else need to come before this body?
Just a motion to, well, we already recessed it. No.
We adjourn. We
Nope.
recess.
Yeah,
We're recessed.
10 o'clock.
Okay, so we're ready to go then. All right, see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Thank you.